Welcome back to the PT Graduate Podcast. And my guest today is Wann. Welcome, Leanne.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate the time that it takes, and I know we're all busy people, so it's much appreciated, and it's great to have someone who other people out there will probably recognize, as opposed to some of my guests who fly under the radar, do great things, but don't necessarily have as much of a profile as you. So I'm very grateful to have you here, and it's going to be really good sort of picking your brains and getting an understanding of a little bit more about you and the stuff we may not know, because I mean, there is some stuff that we know, and probably there's a lot of stuff we don't know. But I remember I've been in New Zealand for about 22 years, and I was just checking out some information on you, and I think it was one of your social posts. You said that you got a tap or you got a phone call about 17 years ago to do Downsize Me. Is that right?
Yeah, it was actually 18 years, showing my age here. 18 years ago, I got the phone call to ask if I would become a personal trainer on a TV show.
Yeah.
I'd never done anything like this in my life. And I actually thought the call was a hoax.
Oh.
So I was going to hang up. I was standing in a health food store at the time with my training partner, and we just finished a train.
Right.
And I was just like, what the? Anyway, as I said on my post, I'm very grateful I didn't hang up, because it wasn't a hoax, and that ended up being 5 years
Really?
on the show Downsize Me, which actually went global. So it was in Ireland, it's in Europe. It was actually still on air last year in Australia.
Right.
So exciting. Unfortunately, we didn't get royalties. So
Oh, no. So you did the you didn't do the Harrison Ford thing. You did the Mark Hamill thing.
Yeah.
I followed both yourself and Damien Christoph as a result of that, and I was listening to him when he was doing the wellness guys with the other two chiropractors, and that kind of really broadened my perspective of health. And obviously, followed the stuff that you've done as well. And there are certain key people who have been sort of icons for me in the industry as I was getting into it about 14 years ago, and you were definitely on that list. So how did you get into it? Where did it start for you?
I think this is really common with a lot of trainers. When you go into this industry, it's often, as was the case with me, not liking or not able to achieve the results that I wanted physically for myself.
Right.
I used to live in the Middle East, in Dubai.
Right.
And I worked in logistics and forecasting. This was my former life.
Yep.
And I earned a lot of money at the time, as you did in Dubai many years ago. And there was a book, and some of the PTs out there would remember, if they're older, it was called Body for Life by Bill Phillips.
Yes.
Right. And this was a 12-week transformation program, and you used all the EAS supplements, and there was all these shakes and powders, and at the time ephedrine was legal and you could use that, and it was in all of the supplements.
Yeah.
And I did this. I'm a bit of anyone who does know me, I'm very specific and committed to what I do. So I did it for 14 weeks instead of 12. But I did not look like the photos in the book. I did not have the ripped abs, and I lost weight, but I did not look like them. So when I came home to New Zealand, it still bothered me. And I thought, something's wrong, something's not right, it can't just be me. So I started learning about how to train. I knew nothing. I absolutely knew nothing. And then the universe kind of intervened with me, and I swapped. Well, I left my corporate job one day. I just left. I didn't want to do it anymore. And I had a trainer, and he said to me, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know." And he said, "Why don't you become a personal trainer?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know anything about it." And he said, "Don't worry, you don't need to know anything. You just need a first aid certificate." So I started working in that gym that night for, I think, $11 an hour. I knew nothing. And I used to walk around with a little notepad, and I would draw the floor plan of the gym, and I'd put a little square for each piece of equipment. I didn't know what they were called.
Right.
And I would go and find a trainer or someone that wasn't busy, and I would ask them, and I would say, what does that do? How do you use it? And what are your tips? And I would write it all down. And that's how I started learning.
Wow. Okay. Crikey. And I presume that at some point you did something a bit more formal to give you some
Yes, I did. What happened is I was really highly educated in my former career, which is in logistics, analytics, international business, marketing. I have degrees from university in politics and Japanese and all of these things. So when I came into the personal training, the health and fitness industry, I always felt, and now to some degree I still do, underqualified. So when I started learning, I would do papers, I would do courses, and I would just keep learning and learning. So I'm trained through institutes in New Zealand, the Holistic Performance Institute. I'm trained through, I was a member of REPS for years and years and years. I'm trained through institutes in America. I'm overtrained now. But over the years, it was just continual education. And I think it was that desire to feel like I knew enough to be able to help somebody with what is their most vulnerable, place that people get into. People come to us because they want to achieve something and they don't know how, and they often don't believe in themselves, and they look to us as trainers for them to encourage and motivate and inspire and give knowledge. And I always felt that if somebody was going to give me the privilege of working with them, I had to give back what could be only my absolute best. So it was my job to keep learning, to keep training, and to know as much as I possibly could. But we all know we can't know everything, right? So it's that continual learning. I still train now and I still study now. And I think you get to the point where you have this really great foundation of knowledge. You can start making your own calls and your own judgments. I can see a client. I train a little bit now, not very much. But I started a new client 2 weeks ago, looked at him and I said, yep, you need this, this, and this, and this is how we'll start, we'll do this. And it just comes to you because of, again, my age, over 25 years of doing it.
And I think that's probably one of the big tips, and that comes through with a lot of the people I talk to is that ongoing education. And that's I guess that hunger for more knowledge, but it shows the passion, and it shows the fact that you want to do the absolute best by your clients. So that's tip one, which I'm going to put down in the notes later.
I see, and your clients see that too.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing. I have trainers often ask me, how do you keep your clients, and how do you engage with them and keep them coming back? We know it's much easier to retain a client than it is to find a new one. And if you are continually seen as knowing new stuff, or knowing what's out there, or knowing what's on trend, and you can dispel that myth for a client, or you can try a new exercise that's been out there and tell them whether it's good or bad, they trust you and they respect you, and you're giving them such value, but you're also giving yourself priority and care in terms of your own learnings and and broadening that as well. So I think it's like a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned HPN. I see we've both been students with Mr. Harvey, and
that was magic. I did nutrition through Cliff. And the Holistic Performance Institute, I think, is one of the best in the country in New Zealand. If people come and ask me and they go, where should I start? How do I get started learning foundation and moving forward? It would be with Cliff and his guys. I worked also with Mickey Williden.
Yes.
Amazing nutritionist. Actually, when I was working at the Warriors as a nutritionist for them, she invited me into her class at AUT to give a lecture. On performance nutrition. And it was a magic experience to be able to talk to those people, but they are people who are at the top of their game. And if I was learning from anybody, it would be those guys.
Yeah. They're so hot on the research, aren't they? In terms of
Yeah.
keeping on top of it and then implementing. Um,
Yes.
so tell me a bit about the Warriors. I did know that, but I didn't write it down. So how long were you there?
5 years.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so I survived 3 coaches. Anyone who knows the Warriors knows they go through a coaching staff really quickly.
Yes.
I started when Matt Elliott became the head coach. That must have been 2000, maybe 2012, I want to say, 2013, somewhere along those lines. And he was really keen to change the whole philosophy of nutrition, and a lot of athletes were moving towards grass-fed products and organic products and using bone broth. And this is when a lot of big American basketballers were going into, who was it? Was it the Giants, or I can't quite remember. Kobe Bryant, whoever he plays for, the Lakers, actually.
Okay.
I remember contacting their coach through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I didn't know him.
Yeah.
But I said, hey, look, I understand that you feed your players this is what you do. I want to do this for this team down in New Zealand. Can you give me any pointers? And he did.
Oh, brilliant.
Which was, it was fascinating, but I moved them from your mainstream nutrition, which was gels and high carbohydrates and all of those things, into more of a fat-based, ketogenic, changing their metabolic flexibility. So we used black coffee and coconut oil pre-game. Right. As our thermogenic and our fat burner and our enhancement, because these boys were, anyone listening, will probably know, when you have carbohydrate sugars, they last for 90 odd minutes in the body. But if you're using a fat fuel, you got like 2 or 3 days.
Oh, yeah, plenty.
These boys weren't lasting. If anyone watches the Warriors, they don't even last the first half, because they were burning high sugar fuel. So we started changing that. And over 5 years, their body composition changed. I don't know if their performance as a team, there's a lot of other issues.
There's other issues,
However, their composition, their athletic performance, and the way that they recovered was really, really heightened. You could see the change in doing that. But anybody who knows, when you advocate different principles, or not so mainstream, there's a lot of flack. So I would cop that. You know what I mean? Like, if the Warriors lost, clearly the nutritionist is crazy feeding them fat. But when you put yourself in that position, you have to expect to be hit. That tall poppy syndrome in New Zealand is there, and it's very prevalent when you stand up and go against the norm. So it was an amazing experience. I used a caliper testing method on them. So I used, I'm trained through the Poliquin Institute in America. So we used biosignature, which is a hormonal profiling caliper testing method. So every week I would measure 80 to 100 athletes. And we would get some really great data on what was going on. And every week you could see whether they had alcohol, whether they had recovered properly. We got into the zone where we could see the level of training had been increased, and their cortisol marker, which has the most scientific evidence behind it, the stomach, the adipose fat tissue would increase around the umbilical as their training did. And when they dropped their training off, that cortisol marker came down.
Interesting.
So, getting anecdotal evidence like that was amazing. And as a trainer, it allowed, I was working as a nutritionist, but it allowed me to get great data and insights into training protocols for people too.
Yeah, fantastic. It's really good to have the science and the numbers to back it up, isn't it? Because you're doing this stuff, you're busy managing a lot of people, but until you've got some data, it can always be, well, because I said so, as opposed to because I've actually got the data to prove that it works. So you're kind of almost doing your own studies on the go at the same time.
And a point on that, and it's like maybe tip number 2, but it's because I said so, and then there's because I know so, because I've seen it. So it's kind of like, don't be afraid to go with your gut instinct, because you've seen something occur all of the time. yes, research is amazing and evidence-based, but don't be afraid to see what's in front of you and what that client is presenting and responding to. You know what I mean? Like, I could follow the textbook all the time, but most of the time now I don't. I see you got to have, you write a program and then you train a client, right? I never write a program before training a client anymore, because I do not know how that client is going to present when they walk in the door. So I always have an idea of what I'm going to do. And then when they walk in, you just get a feel and you get a vibe. And it's like, just go with your gut, because it's never wrong. And you train that person for their needs on that day in that moment.
Absolutely.
That's powerful.
I'm glad it's not just me, because I do a very similar thing. There's a check-in, and once the check-in's done, that directs the next sort of 30 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes, or whatever it may be. Because you're right, we're all human beings, right? We're exposed to so many different things each day, which is going to change our physiology at any given time. Yeah.
I actually think that that's what makes a great trainer incredible, is the ability to read your client. I've had clients come in and I just send them home. I say, no, sorry, I'm not training you today. Like, my passion and my conviction in what I do is so strong that I will just say, no, I'm not going to do it. Just,
Right.
And that's a hard call when you're earning money from a training session. Do you know what I mean? But you know what? Those clients trust me implicitly, because they understand I would rather not train them. I would rather lose money than put them in jeopardy that day.
I guess that's...
Yes, I could stretch them, or I could do this, but that person actually needed to go home and sleep.
Yeah. And you're being authentic then, aren't you? It is
Totally.
very much about the care as opposed to the money. And they see that quickly with those sorts of decisions. One of the other things I noticed not that long ago, I think it was Instagram, was the bodybuilding phase. And the text, the post said something about your biggest lesson.
I think that's why I am in the position I'm in now, is because I don't disagree with mainstream just because I disagree with a lot of mainstream approaches. I disagree with a lot of mainstream approaches because I did it.
Okay.
I did it. I did body sculpting, bodybuilding for 6 years. Right. I know what it's like to diet for 11 months a year. I did 4 competitions a year. I know what it's like to do 7 hours of cardio in a day. I know what it's like to train with pneumonia and bronchitis. I had to get prescriptions for prednisone. I had to get approval to compete when on these drugs because I was so sick. I remember the worst. I was hanging onto a treadmill. My eyes were closed because I was so tired. I wanted to sleep, and I was so sick, and I was still doing my cardio to compete. So I know what it's like to push the body through the limits. And as I said, I did that for 6 years. I competed. I did really well in some competitions in some years, and then it started to just not work anymore.
Right.
I think maybe a year 4, I was like, something crazy is going on. I literally count the calories in cough medicine, right? I eat broccoli. I eat egg whites. I've done all of that, right? I know how to calorie cycle. I know how to count my calories. I know how to, and something is wrong because I'm not losing weight. I remember the last competition I did, 2 weeks beforehand, I had dropped it to 1 protein shake and 1 chicken breast a day to try and move the fat. Just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But my body was so exhausted. It was so depleted. It was so broken. I was on border of burnout, depression, like everything was about to come crashing down for me. I'm not saying that you can't go and do bodybuilding and body sculpting and do it well. I'm saying you have to be really clever about what you do, and you have to be really conscious about the choices that you make and counteract anything that can be detrimental to the body long term. Do it short term. There's a way and a method to do things. I'm a big advocate. I don't believe in the caloric model. I don't believe that's our first port of call to achieve great results with clients for weight or longevity or optimal health. And the reason I'm so adamant about it is because I did it, right? And it's interesting. A lot of clientele that came to me over the years were the ones that were in the too hard basket. I would get the ones that, they used to work with so-and-so, but it wasn't shifting. I have PCOS, but the trainer doesn't know how to train me because I'm not losing weight. I go and I do sprints on the bike and my legs are getting bigger. I get those people who don't fit the normal mold. So then I had to go and figure out how to train these people and change the protocols to work with the hormonal profile and the environmental situation of that person and of that client. So bodybuilding taught me a lot of mindset and determination, but also taught me a lot of what not to do for my health and my long-term, longevity and state of mind.
Yeah. It's an interesting journey, isn't it? When you put your body through the ringer like that, and you learn so much about yourself, don't you? And there's some horrible stuff that may go on, but the lessons that you learn are so powerful for helping your clients later.
Oh, incredibly. And, there's something to be said for empathy and sympathy. You don't want to have to go through everything just to be a great role model or teacher about it. But, I actually remember when I was boxing and I did a celebrity fight. And the training that I went into for that on your mindset is horrific. It is. I remember my trainer used to work with David Tour. And he was training me, and I used to train at 4 a.m. in the morning, midday, and 4 p.m. in the afternoon.
Crikey.
So I used to go home, sleep, eat, train, sleep, eat, train, literally. And one day he trained me. This is coming up to a fight, and he was making me do band squats, side lunges with a band around my legs. Step, squat, step, squat. And I had to go around an entire rugby field.
Oh, geez.
Now, this was excruciating. It was playing with my head, right? But I was so determined, and I got round the rugby field. And as I came around the corner, I wanted to quit so many times. It's painful. Anybody who doesn't, go and try it, and please let me know how you do it. I came round to the end. It was horrific. It was burning. It was, And I get to where he is, and he said, right, one more time. Now, I remember that so clearly. This is, nearly 9 years ago.
Right.
The stuff that went through my head, the fight, the what I wanted to yell at him, it was just horrific. And it was this incredible experience, actually. And the mind does all of this stuff, and then it clears, and then you can just go. And when I came back and I had finished it, he said, that's where you need to go when you fight. But he said, I can't teach it to you. You have to get there. And it was the most horrific thing I've ever been through, but the most empowering. I would never recommend it. But, he's getting me ready to fight in a ring with somebody who wanted to take me out because of who I was. And, that's the girl off the TV show. And I'll take it, you know what I mean? So he was trying to prepare me the best he could.
Brilliant. And sometimes even explaining it's not worth it. It has to be just keep doing it and then the light bulb moment.
Yes.
Yeah, it's that it's totally physical, and then suddenly it becomes psychological, doesn't it? It's like those SAS shows.
Yeah, it is. It's true what they say. The last, 10, 20%, it's all in the head. It's a bit like, when you're training clients, how many times have you ever said, when your mind thinks you can do, when your body thinks it can do no more, you've always got 2 or 3 left. And if you can get a client and get in their head, and you always can get them to do 2 or 3 more.
Yeah. Is more of your work now sort of nutrition based? I see, looking at your amazing website, which has got lots of information on it, that there's certainly a nutritional focus, and you've got the Ask Me page and the product checker, and some really interesting cool little services. I might have to borrow those. Is that a fair comment in terms of the sort of nutrition?
So the website is a new project that I've just started. It took me maybe 12 months to build.
Right.
And the reason I built the website was because I felt that there's a lot of confusing information in the industry. How, nutrition and training and weight loss and all of these things. And I was getting really, really tired of people just being so confused. And then they would come and ask me this, and they say, what about this? And what about this? And you can't charge people, for this question, and do all of that. And they just want bits of information. And then we get to this environment we're in. People are really stressed. They're really time poor. And they are conscious of where they spend their money. Do you know what I mean? So I wanted to create something that costs next to nothing, but it put 20 years, my experience, all in one place for people to access.
Gotcha.
So it's like if somebody goes to the supermarket, they pick up a product, they want to know whether this is good for weight loss and is it good for longevity, because there's so much selling happening out there. So I will just break it down. So they just submit it and I answer it. So the website is 25 years of all my knowledge, all my tips, all my hacks, my tricks, everything is in that website. Because
Fantastic.
then I have one place that I can send people and that I can support them, guide them. So my members talk to me, they can book free consults, they can get support, they can access my coaching app.
Right.
I built an app as well to go in there, so then I can coach and train people. And there is nutrition. There's a lot of recipes. Like, I'm a big advocate of gluten-free, sugar-free, dairy-free, soy-free, and preservative-free. Now, go and find that on Google. Really hard. So I thought, right, I'm just going to put it all in one place. So in a recipe is all of those things. Over time, I've done that. But in answer to your question, the last few years, I've actually been working as a private health consultant for a US billionaire. So my job was to look after him predominantly, and then his family, with all things health and fitness.
Wow.
So that job was liaising with his medical doctors in the US on his protocols and his medications and supplements. It was writing the menu for his jet when he was flying on it. It was telling his staff in the US what to cook. It was going out and training him when he was here in New Zealand. It was looking after him, knowing the latest research. Like I had access to some of the top experts in the world. So I was able to, he would say, I want to know about sleep. Can you go talk to this person? I want to know about fasting. Can you go talk to this person? And they would be the top people in their field. So I was so lucky.
Fantastic.
To have access to this. So for 4 years, that's what I was doing and working for. So that was really exciting. So, all of it. I work mostly now in nutrition. Nutrition and, for want of a better word, busting BS. So I love content. I love information and I love knowledge. And I love empowering people with it. So I write a lot, of posts, of articles, and in my site is there's a section called Ask Me Anything, AMAs. So my members will ask a question and then I'll post a video answer for them, and then everyone can see it. So I like to just call it as it is and go, right, well, this is my take on it. And to give people real information that's really easy to access. So if they ask me about training, totally. And as I said, my app is training and coaching, and it's a lot of that resetting, that foundation, that posture base. I got to turn the abs on before I can go and do a deadlift, of stuff. So I think when you become a trainer, what tends to happen is you learn the basis of training, and then you kind of go into a specialty area. You become a rehab trainer, or a prenatal, postnatal kind of thing, or into bodybuilding, or into performance and sports, or into lifestyle. Like there's different areas you can kind of specialize in. And I went down the track more of nutrition because I became of the belief that you can't achieve your physical goals unless you're optimizing the fuel that's going in. And that's where my passion is. And that's why I do performance nutrition, is what is the molecule in that food going to do to my brain? And what performance do I want? Do I need to have focus and drive? Then what will I eat to do that? Do I need to curb cravings? What do I need to affect in the neurotransmitters to mitigate that? So I look at, as unexciting as it sounds with people who are foodies, I look at food as fuel, literally, and go, what fuel do I need to perform that way on this day? And then that's how I apply that. I take that knowledge and I apply it in a really simple form to my clients. If I'm dealing with CEOs and billionaires and things, they don't have time. They don't want to know. They just go, I just say, right, do 1, 2, and 3. That's it. Go do this for me. And they go, okay. And men particularly will work like that, right? I worked as the ambassador for Men's Health Trust for quite a few years, and I worked on radio, and I did a competition with 4 high-profile men, and it's looking at how to, change them quickly and things like that. And so you learn how to deal with people and what kind of communication is going to work best. And men are straight up. They don't want to know why most of the time. And you just go 1, 2, 3, do this, boom, done. Women, a little bit different.
I must be the exception, because I'm that person who goes, well, I don't understand why. And I keep asking another question until I'm happy that I fully understand. But I get what you mean. Interesting you talk about the neurotransmitters and not just the physical performance, but the mental performance. I think I saw, I can't remember where it was, but you did some work with jockeys. Did you do a study?
Oh my goodness, that's a while ago.
All right.
Yes. So the New Zealand Jockey Association hired me as a consultant, and it was very, very interesting, and I wrote a paper on it, actually, which was submitted through the Holistic Performance Institute.
That'll be how.
So I wrote a paper on it, which was fascinating, if I may say so myself. Actually, it was fascinating writing it, but it was a really interesting thing. It was really interesting working with a group of people. So literally, I went round the country. I would fly in or drive into different race courses or where the groups of jockeys were, and I would present to them on nutrition and performance and things. And it was a really challenging group to deal with, because they didn't want muscle tissue because it weighed too much.
Yes.
Right? So they didn't want to build bulk, but they needed strength and power to hold these massive animals, right, and control them. But they needed to be light on the seat, and they needed to be light with their touch. So it was such an interesting dilemma to fuel these. And so to teach them to eat foods, to get a performance out of them, was more compelling than for, say, recovery. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
These people, this group sat in saunas to lose weight. They stopped eating. They used diet pills and even more extreme measures to get rid of food and to not eat, to make weight. Right? So you had a lot of bone loss. Bone density loss. You had a lot of osteoporosis. You had a lot of mental issues. It was a very unique group to do, and it was really interesting to do, but a lot more mental focus than it was on the physical focus for that group of athletes.
Interesting. Can people find that study?
I'm sure. I mean, I know that Holistic Performance Institute would probably still have a copy of it on their things. I don't know if I still have it in my file. I'll have to dig it out and see if I have that paper that I wrote.
You never know.
Really fascinating. I had to get a lot of research from up in Ireland. And it was just fascinating. I read books after books. And at the time, I also was privileged to work with, I do forget his name, actually, the top jockey in the country at that point in time. And I got to work with him one-on-one. They asked me if I would work with him.
Right.
And really, I remember going up to Ruakaka to see him and train with him. And we got great results with the change, with doing what he needed to do. And just, it was tweaking, and it was just, and this is how I work a lot with clients. It's, I don't give them perfect, that doesn't really exist. I don't give them optimal. I give them practical for them. Like, what can they implement? How easy is it for them, and what is going to give them the quickest change in the shortest amount of time? Because if they get that change, or that they feel good, that quickly, then they're going to trust me with everything else I say or do.
Yeah, you're the hero. Yeah,
absolutely. So you might have this long-term plan for them, but you have to start with something that's going to elicit it. It's a bit like supplementation. Zinc is a game changer, right? Absolute game changer. And most athletes, most trainers, most people are some levels of zinc deficiency. Magnesium is also up there, right? It's the first mineral to be leached when we're stressed. The difference between these two, both really important. Magnesium, a client will feel. They will feel the change in 3 to 4 days, right? Zinc, you won't feel it, right? And so it's like when you're picking some things, I like to do both. I think zinc is a base foundation for everything else. However, you pick something that will get buy-in and that will give your client the feeling of achievement and success really quickly.
Yeah. And that's brilliant advice. I mean, that's probably the top tip, but you can apply that to the physical stuff as well, can't you? If you can't get some quick wins quickly, then people are going to start to be a little skeptical quite early on.
Like you take a muscle group, right? And you look at that person and you go, what's going to fire the quickest? If you're dealing with a client who has a lot of weight and a lot of inflammation on the arms, and you start working on triceps or biceps, all you're going to do is blow those arms out, the muscle underneath, and make them look fatter. Right? So they're not going to understand that because their visual representation of themselves is stronger than what the practical mind is telling them. Right? You can pull their posture back up super quick and lean them out in the abs because you pulled their posture back. They'll notice that in 3 days.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's smart programming, isn't it? It's about doing the right stuff early on, because then you've got that trust, you've got that rapport, and the stuff that you do later on, which could be slightly more boring and less obvious, you've already got that credibility, and therefore that relationship will last.
And that's the key to longevity with clients. And there's 2 things that I learned. I had my own gym for 5 years. I built my own gym, and so it was paramount for me to retain clients. Right. So the way that I worked with their regime was they'd sign up for 12 weeks or a membership or a program or a block of PT sessions. So maybe it was a block of 12 PTs. So what we did was at number 1 PT, you did this and set them up. And at number 3, they were doing, and seeing results. Between 3 and 8 is where you did kind of the boring stuff and the foundation that you had to do. And as you came up to the renewal, that's when you needed to get exciting again, right? That's when you started to get change and you needed to see them. And that's when you started talking about, oh my gosh, when we start doing this and this one, this is when you're going to see this. And you're already selling, for want of a better word, or inspiring them. So by the time it came to rebooking, they were asking you to sign up. You didn't say, do you want another 12 session? They said, can I please have another one? Can you fit me in? And this is, I suppose, I have degrees in international marketing and business. And I think that's put me in such a great place because I came with business acumen and I came with marketing knowledge into the PT world, and that's what I applied because that's all I knew.
Perfect. Great. Beautiful. Transferable.
That's what you have to kind of apply with it, but don't be afraid to sell if what you're selling is genuine and it's going to, I always say I give a damn about my clients. So I always look and go, what do they need? I've most of the time got something that they could buy from me that would be incredibly beneficial. So it's about sharing that with them in a way that they get inspired and they want to be with you.
That's awesome. I don't really need to pause and go, right, can I have some top tips, Leanne? Because all the way through, you have delivered these amazing pearls of wisdom from your long career and answered that question for me. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's been really good chatting, and we've probably gone longer than I expected. So no, I really appreciate the extra time and your pearls of wisdom. Like I said, it's been we could probably just keep going for another couple of hours and make it a long form quite easily.
Well, that's okay. Hey, I was thinking, and with your listeners, if you want to ask them if there's specific topics, and you want to jump back in a couple of weeks or months and do something again on a specific topic.
Sure.
I've had a really blessed career and a lot of amazing opportunities, and have been able to work with a lot of different clientele. And if there's anything anyone wants to know, I'm more than happy to share any of it.
That's very generous of you, and a nice idea. So thank you. I'll if that works out, I will be back in touch and we'll try and arrange that.
Great. Well, thanks for having me.
No problem. But for now, thank you, and great to listen to all of that wisdom. So so thanks again, and see you another time.
You're welcome.
Cheers.